Hey there, it's Tom O. The 2026-27 Maine Waterfowl regulations are official. They've not been released yet, but we've got them, and we'll tell you what they are.
Quack.
Welcome to Beyond the Blind, a Tom Ozone podcast, joined as always by Bill Brown and Brad Allen. And yes, the 2026-27 Maine Waterfowl regulations are official. And the main point of interest in the proposed regulations this year, of course, was the movement of the north-south zone boundary. And it's official. That is not going to happen.
That is not. It did not pass.
And this decision was made by the Advisory Council after public comment.
My take home from the waterfowl public hearing was that things are basically unchanged in terms of the population status of migratory game birds from last year, and the season frameworks, et cetera, that we have to work within by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service were also unchanged. So specifically, the only real issue was not related to season timing and bag limits or anything. It was more the modification of that hunting line, which is very important. And the department and the advisory councils heard the input from both sides, for some in favor of a change and others not. But I don't know if you mind if I go a little further and read the exact words from the department's response to these comments based on input on the north-south zone boundary. Was that there was a lack of consensus or any overwhelming support for moving the line. And so it was the department's recommendation that language be removed from the proposal and not let that portion go forward to be voted on. So status quo.
Now, the Advisory Council, who does make the final decision,
Yep.
Again, this is the Advisory Council for the entire Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, right?
Yeah.
Any new regulations.
Any rule or regulation is run by them for them to think about. It's brought before them. They get to think about it for a month or two and debate it, and then the department has input from their species specialists on the reasons for rule changes, and the Advisory Council has the final vote on it, and that goes to the commissioner, which pushes it up to the Secretary of State. And in a zone line change, I've always thought this as a former waterfowl biologist, there's no sense making a change to make 10 people happy if you alienate 12. And that's the kind of thing that I've seen quite a bit with some of these rule changes, is they try really hard to make things better. And in the process, it's just, there's rarely consensus that change is really worthwhile.
Consensus that night at the public hearing was certainly that.
Yeah.
You know,
The department receives comments from the public hearing, but also written comments. So at the public hearing that the three of us attended, the input there was kind of overwhelmingly in favor of no change in the zone line. But people had an opportunity to write in, and I think some people did, such that the input that the department received was fairly balanced. It was almost as many people against the change as there were in favor of it. So the department decided that consensus didn't warrant a change.
So these regulations were actually signed off on May 7th. And the thing about not putting them out in a timely manner is that if you live west of I-95 between Augusta and Newport, as I do, you want to know whether you're in the north zone or the south zone, because I got to put in for time off. I need to know what my seasons are. But we're not going to have to worry about this line change for another 5 years, right?
Correct. There won't be any modifications in these zone lines, at least for 5 years. You know, if you take a kid hunting and stuff, you want to pay attention to when the youth days are, of course. And you know, you mentioned, because you live on the line, and you know, you're trying to think about your hunting. I used to get a lot of calls every year from licensed guides who were really anxious to know what the season's going to be, because they're already booking. And I said, you know, I can give you my thoughts for what I think's going to happen, but you know, this This is all subject to change after that public hearing process. And, if you've booked a bunch of clients for second week of January, you might be out of luck. But
when we met in August to make this determination, I could understand the tightness of the scheduling to get it out to people.
Yeah.
We're now in March, and now these have been officially adopted, signed off in May, and we still, I do agree with the guy that has to schedule his vacation 6 months in advance. He's kind of on the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
I try never to be critical of the department. I understand the vast responsibility they hold, but this time I'm out there. I'm not sure this is right.
So the youth dates for this season are
North Zone, the youth hunt is September 19th and December 12th. And in the South Zone, it's September 19th again and October 17th. That must be in the split.
To the split.
And in the Coastal Zone, it's September 26th and October 17th. So it's
1 week prior to your openers and then during your split. Unless you don't have a split, then it's 1 week after your season closes.
Yeah.
and these are all Saturdays, right? That they
Yes.
have the kids coming out.
Yes.
So your season dates are very similar to last year. North Zone is September 28th through December 5th. South Zone is October 1st through the 10th. And then second season is October 29th through December 26th. Coastal Zone starts October 3rd, goes through October 10th. And then November 5th through January 5th is the second season. And all the bag limits are the same as last year. And that's pretty much set by the federal government anyway.
haven't seen any of these big bag limit changes or season changes coming out of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And Bill over there, I know he's looking at the tea leaves, and he thinks the future might be a little tighter because I presume you feel that way because North American populations are never static. They go up and down.
I think the nesting population's down, if
Yeah.
the truth were told. I mean,
Yeah.
if that's all we're going to rely upon is nesting surveys, we're not flying anymore. I mean,
Well, the feds are. I mean, it's a...
but the department's
Right.
not.
But
So-
the big picture hunting frameworks come out of that breeding ground survey data that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has been flying for 60 years. And I think it's the longest running and the longest number of miles of any survey in the world, to be honest with you. And it continues. And, so there's a lot of background data to rely on. And you're right. If they start seeing breeding populations of key species like mallards tipping down, then they ask their subcommittees at the flyway to evaluate that and think about potential changes going forward. It's a good system.
You got to be proactive or reactive is
Yeah.
always the question. I mean, if you step in too soon, you look like the bad guys.
Yeah,
If you wait too long, you didn't look like you didn't know your job.
Yeah. I can't imagine the work that goes into the breeding ground survey with the miles that those pilots fly at low levels, counting ducks and counting ponds. I mean, over all of Canada, essentially, some of Maine and into the Maritimes. So it's a big survey. I trust it, and I trust the data. And, when the breeding populations are up, you can really pound the ducks. They can handle it.
So these regulations are official, right? I mean, you got them from an official state source.
The only thing that could change, and I probably shouldn't even mention it, but we will send these seasons to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And we might have made a mistake here somewhere. We might have presented a season that's actually 61 days long instead of 60, just doing the calendar and making a physical human error mistake. And the feds will say, no, that's not allowable. So they'll kick it back to us. And we'll have to make an adjustment. And then we'll have to go apologize to all the waterfowl hunters that we made a mistake. We got one extra day here. So we're going to knock off the last day of the season, which is January 5th or whatever. But as far as I know, this is the holy grail for the hunting season.
Other than that,
Go hunting.
Go enjoy yourselves.
should we put a link to it, or is that too presumptuous?
Link her up.
I mean,
It's been signed off. It's been stamped. It's been.
I mean, you guys have the actual document,
Got it in
right?
my hand.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all
Put it
right.
out there.
All right, we'll
We
put it
can-
out there.
You heard it here first.
It is an exclusive. We will put the link down below with the actual document, which are the 2026-27 Maine Waterfowl season dates. Since our previous episode featuring Rick Labby, which was a lot of fun, Brad has a man crush on Rick. Once he started talking about out west, you love out west, man.
Oh man, it's to hunt out there is to die for. It's amazing. I mean, I love hunting in Maine and everything else, but I'm more familiar with hunting in Montana than Wyoming. But it's just exceptional.
So one of the subjects that we talked about was turkeys, and I put a short out on Facebook, or maybe they call it a reel. I forget. But anyway, boy, did we get some turkey hate. Man, people do not like turkeys.
Yeah, it's totally undeserved as well.
And I ended up finding myself being the turkey defender, and I don't give a shit about turkeys. I don't.
I do.
I don't hunt turkeys. I don't care about turkeys. I hunted them a couple of times. Never got one. Doesn't matter to me. But there's a lot of stuff that people say that I'm just like, that is not true.
They get blamed for everything, and almost all the damage that turkeys began to do when the population was expanding in Maine, the more we looked at it, the more it was overstated. The individual who was crying foul overstated the damage, or the miscreant, to be honest with you, because here's an example I can think of that kind of reminds me about turkey issues is turkeys spend the night in trees. Blueberry barrens get a lot of wildlife damage from bear, deer, coyotes, foxes, anything else at night. And all that damage that a blueberry field or grower may have to deal with comes from nocturnal animals. But then come sunrise, what do you see? You see 30 turkeys out in a blueberry field. And that's just the way they feed. They feed during the day. And who's to say that these turkeys going amongst the blueberry plants are eating blueberries or eating crickets, grasshoppers? I mean, they like both. Well, so we did a study on that because that to us in the beginning seemed to be that's a legitimate issue that blueberry growers in Maine don't like us because we brought turkeys back to the state. And we studied it. A grad student at the University of Maine looked at it. And in fact, they do eat blueberries, but not a lot of blueberries. They eat some. A lot of the fields that the turkeys were out in during the day were fallow fields, not even the ones they were going to harvest. But they're so obvious that it's easy to connect the dots that I have an issue. It's these great big birds out there that look like little dinosaurs. And they get blamed for everything. And, it's not to say that a 20-pound turkey knocks a guy off a motorcycle. That's bad. Or a turkey decides to rip the windshield wiper off your wife's Mercedes-Benz. That's happened too. But in general, they're not the scourge on the landscape that people like to portray. Lyme disease and ticks in Maine and turkey restoration are coincidental. The two of them, the expansion of Lyme disease ticks and the expansion of turkeys just happened at the same time. And some people connected the dots. Well, it must be the turkeys that brought these things in. Didn't happen. Turkeys have nothing to do with the winter tick that affects moose in northern Maine, although some people would suggest the turkeys are to blame for the moose issues, and that's not true. They don't eat grouse eggs, like some people purport. What are some of the other things they blame turkeys for?
Yeah, geez. Hey, you want to go through some of the comments? You want to read some of the comments?
Yeah,
Come on, that
driving.
was some good stuff.
Tom and I are the defenders of wild turkeys in Maine.
I don't know why. I don't know why I'm the defender of turkeys now. I guess just because. I mean, Ben Franklin wanted them to be the symbol of America.
Yeah,
Maybe that's it.
even that's not true, but it was rumored.
Well,
You want to know the real story there?
He he talked down on the bald eagle and used the turkey as an example of a bird which would be a better symbol because they didn't scavenge.
He was literally on a committee looking at the symbols that we were hoping to have for eagles for the United States of America. So he and his crew looked at 7 or 8 different motifs of bald eagles. And his comment to his daughter, Sarah, he wrote a letter to her. He said, these all suck. All these artistic renditions of bald eagles holding olive branches and bow and arrows and stuff all suck. We might as well have a wild turkey as our symbol as opposed to these shitty things. That's where it became that he didn't suggest that the turkey be our symbol, but he said they might as well if these motifs don't get any better.
Right. So it wasn't because that eagles are scavengers and eat carrion or whatever.
Well, they do get maligned for stealing food from others and just liking dead food and stuff. You're right. So, but they're still our symbol. Well, that's we restored bald eagles to Maine mostly because of the department's effort and the work of Charlie Todd. And people are starting to complain we get too many eagles.
Right. Well,
we are trying to bring peregrine falcons back, and their numbers aren't high enough that people think they're horrible yet. But you know what? We bought turkeys back because they were once here, and the human activities of the late 1700s and early 1800s changed the landscape, and they shot them all, and they went extinct, so to speak. The term is actually extirpated. And so to right that wrong, we went to Vermont and got 41 turkeys. Or Bill Bosenhard and Stu Bristol and a few others did anyway. So, we had them on our landscape and we returned them. I don't think any of us believed that they would have done as well as they did. We actually drew a line through Bangor. There was 80 inches of snow average per winter or something. We thought 80 inches was going to be too much for them and that they wouldn't persist in that area north of Bangor. But we didn't realize that they would hit bird feeders as much as they did too. And that probably helped a lot of them get through those tough winters. And then since the 70s, we haven't had that many tough winters. So they're doing pretty well.
Oh, man, some of these are.
Well, yeah.
I can't read them.
Well, you don't have to say all the F words that are in there, but
all right, I'll do my best.
Just touch on the subjects. All right. I mean, Brad already probably covered some of them. But.
Blank turkeys. They taste like blank, especially after spring hunt. Dirty, nasty, tick-filled, can't fly, worthless birds. But I have found there is a fan. There is a turkey fan that's trying very hard to defend the turkey.
Yeah, it's me.
Stupid idea. They taste like blank and hurt the deer.
No.
Yeah.
That's a good question. People thought they're going to outcompete deer. Well, in order for two animals in the world to outcompete each other, they have to compete for something that's limited and such that competition causes one animal to suffer and the other one to do well. And the only thing that turkeys and deer really eat together are acorns. Right. And usually when there's an acorn crop, there's enough for everybody. There's enough for turkeys, enough for deer, enough for squirrels and everything else that eats acorns. And, so they're not fighting for anything limited. Their habitats are slightly different. And, I don't know if you've been down on Mount Desert Island the last couple of years or down in Surrey or Southwest Harbor. The landscape is lousy with deer right now. And we just had a harvest of 50,000.
Right.
There's no shortage of deer out there that you can attribute to competition with turkeys.
Thanks for ruining the state of Maine, blank. Bringing your ticks to kill our moose. Biggest blank mistake the state of Maine ever has made. But they do have a fan. There is a guy saying zero evidence turkeys brought ticks to Maine, and the tick affecting the moose is the winter tick, which is native to Maine. Yeah. And was here long before the turkeys were reintroduced.
Bingo. Give that guy a gold star.
So these are two different ticks we're talking about.
They are.
There's a variety of ticks, obviously.
There's a deer tick that we all hate, and there's the winter tick, which doesn't cause humans issues, but boy, it devastates a young moose for sure.
And
Totally different species, totally different life cycle, totally different habitat.
Here's the one you must have talked about. You owe me $500 for the damage to my car.
Well, if you're going to hit something, I'd rather it be a turkey.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they're tough on plastic grills. You know, that you guys know cars more than I do, but it doesn't take much to put $1,000 worth of damage into the grill of a car these days. The natives on Isle of Ho brought turkeys out there because they were overrun with deer and deer ticks, and all the lobstermen and all their families had Lyme disease out on Isle of Ho, so they brought turkeys in because the guy that did it was a hunter anyway. He wanted a hunting population. And one of my lobsterman friends out there said that he killed one of those quasi-domestic turkeys out on Isle of Ho, and he said it was full of ticks in its crop. And I thought, well, cool, maybe turkeys really do eat ticks. And so I've looked it up and researched it, and I've never found that they're very effective at eating ticks. They will eat a tick. You watch the way turkeys feed anyway. If there's a big blade of grass with a tick hanging off the end of it, a young turkey's going to grab that every time. But they don't eat substantial quantities of them. They don't carry substantial quantities in their feathers. I mean, they're preening all the time if you watch them. And they aren't good at transporting ticks. And if you're worried about Lyme disease in Aroostook County getting there because of the turkey expansion, there are many, many other birds that ticks will hang on to that will fly that distance from Belgrade to Caribou a lot more efficiently than turkeys will walk there. So if Lyme disease infected deer ticks made it to Aroostook County, it was probably a songbird as opposed to a game bird. Game birds don't travel that much. So, but I have friends that I work with that catch small passerine birds, and they've told me of ticks that are attached to the face of say a robin, where around the eyelids, there's not a lot of room on a bird for a tick to get in and bite like they do on the hair on a mammal, but they will bite on the eyelids or right where the beak hits the face, and they will get carried hundreds of miles. And it wasn't because a wild turkey lugged that tick all the way to Caribou.
The thing about turkeys and grouse, they don't even live in the same age of woods, right?
Yeah, that's true. You know, grouse really do require young forests. There's just no doubt about it. And Maine has a great grouse population because we have active forestry throughout much of the state. And so if we can create young forests, you're going to have good grouse numbers. But when you think of wild turkeys, they like more mature forests. They'd rather have a oak tree and a rock maple than a aspen whippet or something like that. And there's a lot of that in Maine now because people don't cut as much as they used to. I think that's a fair assumption. There's not as much forestry going on, particularly in central Maine south. And so the forests are growing older, which are favoring wild turkeys. And it's only natural to think that if the habitat has made that switch to favor wild turkeys over young forest-loving rough grouse, then turkey populations would improve and grouse numbers would maybe stay the same or go down. But, you know, turkeys can live anywhere when you think about it. You see them on golf courses, you see them on soccer fields, you see them on blueberry barrens. I mean, there's an animal that can live almost anywhere in the great state of Maine, and it's not surprising that their numbers have done so well.
Well, if you remember back to, it's been so long since episode 3, now that we are into double digits. But if you, but if you think back to episode 3, you may recall that was our dog episode. And that was the episode where Bill was hemming and hawing about whether or not he was going to get a dog. He was always saying, that was it. I'm not getting another dog. I had my last dog. Well, Look at this. What's going on here, Bill?
We have a puppy. We have a 10-week-old yesterday, female, English lab, very strong pedigreed little girl, and so far very smart. She came to be with us a week ago yesterday. Turned 10 weeks yesterday. She's met the band boys.
Yeah, I think she already has a new fan.
Yeah,
Oh, she's a keeper.
I think she is. I did the pedigree registration name, and I threw in Yahoo Corners Miss Teal. I should have put high hopes, but
Yeah.
I do have high hopes for her. I think she's going to be a good girl. I think she's going to be. If she's not, it won't be because of her. It'll be purely because I just noticed. When he's 68 years old with a puppy, man, I'll tell you, it's like raising kids again.
And you really have her because of episode 3 of our podcast.
I do, because an old friend of mine, an old Ducks Unlimited chapter chairman, was having a litter of puppies. And he said, "Hey, I watched your podcast. If you're considering," I said, "Oh, I hate to ask, but I will." And anyway, one thing led to another. She's home. She's ours.
She has a great disposition just hanging out with us.
She does.
She was hanging out with a crew of, 6 or 7 of us around the barn and just laying down. And she came to see everybody. She greeted everybody, and then that was it.
Yeah. No, I don't, of course we got the terrible twos to live through. So
I know, but that's so short. I mean, they grow up so fast, man. You think she's going to hunt this year?
I do. Well, she'll be 7 months in October. I'll limit her exposure. I won't put her in a situation where she could fail. It'll be a one-on-one. I'll sneak off when people are working. I'll sneak off.
Well, never mind. You need somebody to shoot for you. That's what you need. You need.
Yeah, I need that anyway. So.
That's true. I volunteer.
Yeah.
And you could just handle the dog.
Yeah. Well, that's what I used to enjoy youth days with the dog. Because youth day was usually before our season. It was, a good chance to brush up on the dog work because you weren't handling a gun, And you cannot be a hunter and a dog handler when they're young. You can't. You've got to be responsible to one or the other. You're right. I'll invite you to shoot for my dog.
There you go. Good.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll be disappointed if I fail her, but it'll be disappointed in myself, not her.
Stay tuned for the adventures of Miss Teal.
We'll bring her in someday.
Yeah, we got to get her in here, and we'll have Bill figure out his camera so he can take some footage for us. I'll be taking some more photos anyway whenever I'm around.
Absolutely.
I always like to take pictures of dogs. It's the only thing I ever really take pictures of, dogs and bands. That's about it.
She did take to swimming quick. She is a natural swimmer. I've had several that were thrashers. They get in there a little bit like a young kid. But she's pretty calm. She likes it. We'll see.
Oh, she'll like it. She'll love it, man. It'll
We'll
be
see.
great. It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
We'll see.
Again, we'll put a link for the actual document of the Maine Waterfowl regulations for 2026-27, even if the state of Maine will not. We will have the link down below. You can download that as a PDF. And don't forget to do that stuff. Like, subscribe, all that. We never mentioned that.
Why don't we do that? I'm not proud of ourselves.
I guess that's it.
Yeah. We need you.
Yes.
We need your support.
All that stuff. Comment, share it, and we appreciate it. And we'll see you next time here on Beyond the Blind.
Quack.